Carl stared thoughtfully at the monitor. His restaurant was only a month old and he couldn't yet afford proper security. He knew all too well that employees could cause harm, some more than others. Theft was common, and while the reasons varied, he couldn't allow it to disrupt his business. He had spent years saving for this restaurant, and now that things were going even better than expected, he watched as his dishwasher dragged a large bag toward the exit. Just 3 days ago, he had installed cameras. Had she been doing this all month? He stood up decisively. Theft needed to be stopped immediately. It was strange, though. The girl was so young. She didn't seem the type, but perhaps she had simply been hiding her true nature well. In half an hour, the restaurant would close. The dishwasher and the administrator were always the last to leave. The dishwasher exited through a separate door, which the administrator locked afterward. Since the door couldn't be opened from the outside, the administrator never noticed anything unusual. Everything worked out perfectly for the dishwasher. Carl would have just enough time. He lived only 3 intersections away from the restaurant. 5 minutes by car, and he was there. Turning off his headlights, he waited. Any minute now, she would appear. Vanessa adjusted her cap carefully. "That's it for today. My little one was good. Just a little longer, sweetie, and Mommy will take you out," she whispered. She checked everything one last time. The small holes she had made in the bag were open. Jenny was comfortable. She had fed her half an hour ago, so the baby would sleep soundly. Vanessa knew this wasn't right. If anyone found out, they would take her daughter away. But she had no other choice. Her milk had dried up immediately after birth. Formula was so expensive that her welfare check barely covered 2 weeks' worth. Diapers, rent, utilities. It was impossible. She had been desperate until she heard about the new restaurant hiring staff. When she applied, she had no idea how she would do the job. She needed it desperately, but her neighbor had warned her that she could only babysit twice a week, and for that, Vanessa had to clean her apartment. When she saw where she would be working and realized she would be the only dishwasher, an insane, dangerous plan formed in her mind. She hesitated at first, but then she tried. Jenny was only a month old when Vanessa brought her to work for the first time. The baby was so calm, she just lay there quietly, sleeping in the storage room where the extra dishes were kept. There was plenty of space and the lighting was good. Vanessa kept everything spotless. She had been orphaned young and raised by her grandmother, a romantic who had no interest in household matters. By the time she was 10, Vanessa was running the home. Then came Darren. She didn't just fall in love. She lost her mind over him. Her grandmother had passed a year earlier, and she eagerly invited Darren to move in. He agreed, but the moment he found out she was pregnant, he vanished, taking what little of value she had left. She never went to the police. She was too ashamed to even leave the house. She had almost pulled herself together when those men came. They wanted her to sell the apartment. She refused, but they warned her. Accidents happen, and if she wasn't careful, her baby could be left an orphan. That same day, her milk dried up completely. That was when Vanessa realized the real trials were just beginning. The job had been her salvation. Weekly pay meant she didn't have to worry about food, and for now they had everything they needed. She tried not to think about what would happen when Jenny was 3 or 4 months old. She was strong. She was smart. She would figure it out. At least she had thought she was strong and smart. Lately, she wasn't so sure. Vanessa set the bag down gently, shut the door, turned around, and found herself face to face with the restaurant owner. "Oh, oh," he mocked her. "Show me what's in the bag. At this rate, you're stealing so much, the restaurant won't survive." Vanessa stepped protectively in front of the bag. "I have never stolen anything. How dare you?" "I should be ashamed. Not you, but me." He laughed, then grew serious. "Open the bag. If you don't, I'll call the police." Vanessa sighed. There was no choice. Inside the bag, Jenny began to stir. She sat down, opened her bag, and Carl gasped. "A baby! Is that yours? Are you working with a baby?" Meanwhile, Vanessa picked up Jenny in her arms. "Am I fired?" "Wait, hold on. You're jumping to conclusions. Let me give you a ride home." "Where do you live?" "Not far, just around the corner." "All right, I'll walk you there. And give me that damn bag already." Carl understood perfectly well that Vanessa wasn't bringing the baby to work by choice. He had been through a rough childhood himself, growing up with alcoholic parents. If he hadn't been taken away from them, who knows? Maybe he would have ended up just like them. They reached her building, but Carl didn't stop there. He followed Vanessa up to her floor. When she gave him a questioning look, he simply said, "I could go for a cup of tea." Vanessa shrugged. Tea wasn't a problem. She wasn't going to kick him out anyway. But still, what if? No, he'd never let her keep working with a baby. She quickly changed Jenny and made her a little formula, just enough to help her fall asleep since she had eaten recently. Then she stepped into the kitchen, where Carl was already making tea. He flashed her a cheerful grin. "I took the liberty of getting things started." Vanessa sat down and suddenly realized just how exhausted she was. Not just physically, but emotionally. The constant stress, hiding, worrying if anyone would find out, fearing she'd be fired. Before she knew it, she started crying. "Oh God, what am I supposed to do now?" Carl sat across from her and pushed a cup toward her. "All right, start from the beginning." "What?" She looked at him, confused. "Everything. From the very start. Where you were born, where you studied, everything in order." And so Vanessa started talking. She took occasional sips of tea, telling her story, and realizing just how unfair life had been to her. Why was everything always so hard? Why did nothing ever work out? But she had no answer. Carl didn't look at her while she spoke. He wanted to cry himself. He understood all too well how unfair life could be. "All right," he finally said. "Stay home for a couple of days. I'll call someone. In the meantime, we need to figure something out." "We?" "Yeah, I can't just leave you like this. Besides, you're a good dishwasher." He stood up abruptly. "All right, I'm heading out. Good night." Before she could even thank him, he was gone. Vanessa sat there for a moment, then got up to lock the door. On the hallway table, she saw several large bills. She leaned against the wall and started crying again. The next day, she had no choice but to break one of the bills. Jenny had developed a fever. The doctor prescribed medicine and vitamins, and Vanessa had to run to the pharmacy while her baby was asleep. Luckily, it was just in the next building. She had barely closed the door behind her when the doorbell rang. Her heart pounded. She thought it was Carl. Vanessa quickly checked her reflection in the mirror and opened the door, only to immediately try and shut it again. A man's foot wedged in the doorway, stopping her. He smirked at her arrogantly. "Well, well, hello there, single mom. Is that any way to greet guests?" He pushed his way inside, followed by another man and a woman. They made themselves comfortable at the table, while the woman spread out some documents. "So," the first man said, "have you thought it over?" "I have." "Get out," Vanessa snapped, "or I'm calling the police." "Go ahead, call them," the man chuckled. "But just so you know, the moment you do, you sign your own sentence. Think about your kid." Vanessa's breath caught in her throat. "Who the hell are you people? What do you want? I'm not selling my apartment." "Oh, you will," he said casually. "Every day you resist, the price drops for you. The sooner you agree, the more money you'll get." He named a sum, and Vanessa let out a bitter laugh, even though she was terrified. "Are you joking? That's barely the price of a bathroom in this building." He smirked. "And in a couple of days, you'll agree anyway, for even less." "Get out." "I'm not selling." He took a step toward her. Vanessa shrank back, bracing for the worst. But suddenly the man jerked violently and collapsed to the floor. Carl stood behind him. He turned to the others at the table. "Anybody else need me to explain that the apartment is not for sale?" The intruders scattered immediately. Carl turned back to Vanessa. "Why the hell didn't you tell me about them?" "I didn't know they'd come back," she whispered, looking terrified. His heart clenched. She looked so fragile, so defenseless. "Pack your things." "Where are we going?" "Where we need to." His sharp tone made Vanessa burst into tears. "Sorry," he muttered. "You're coming to my place. I'm barely home anyway, and at least you'll be safe there. Who knows what those bastards will try next?" Vanessa didn't argue. She quietly started packing. 15 minutes later, they were leaving the apartment together. A neighbor peeked out into the hallway. "Vanessa, is that the baby's father? Does this mean I don't have to babysit Jenny anymore? And you won't be coming to clean either?" Carl gave her a slow, almost too friendly smile. flashing his perfect white teeth. That's right. Guess you'll have to clean up after yourself now. The neighbor quickly slammed her door shut. What a beast of a man. Poor Vanessa, getting mixed up with someone like that. Though, wasn't it a different guy coming to see her before? She waved it off. Who could figure out young people these days? Best not to get involved. Jenny was busy looking around the large apartment. It's so nice here, she murmured. Now it is. You should have seen it when I first bought it. Just bare walls, everything broken and falling apart. Anyway, this will be your room. He pushed open a door. Vanessa immediately noticed a man's robe and slippers. But this is your room. Cut it out with the formal talk. We're not at work, Carl said. It's big and warm, so you two will stay here, and I'll move over there. He pointed at another door across the apartment. It just feels, I don't know, inappropriate. What's inappropriate is sleeping on the ceiling. Get settled in. I'll be back soon. Carl disappeared somewhere. Vanessa unpacked their things, then went to the kitchen to get some water. The sink was overflowing with dirty coffee mugs. Looked like Carl only ever drank coffee at home. She rolled up her sleeves, washed the dishes, then peeked into the fridge. An hour later, cutlets were sizzling on the stove, potatoes were boiling in a pot, and Vanessa was chopping a salad, smiling at Jenny, who lay on the kitchen couch propped up with pillows. The door slammed. Carl burst into the kitchen out of breath. He sniffed the air. I'm starving. Come on, hurry. Vanessa scooped up Jenny and followed him to the hallway. A brand new crib and a stroller stood there. Inside the crib were several shopping bags, most likely filled with baby clothes. Oh, you didn't have to. I don't have that kind of money. I don't know when I'll be able to pay you back. Carl smiled. Women are such strange creatures. Who said anything about paying me back? After dinner, Vanessa and Carl started rearranging furniture. He joked around, making her laugh. Even little Jenny, lying on the big bed, was babbling in her own baby language. That night, Vanessa couldn't sleep. Neither could Carl. He suddenly realized how good it felt. He wasn't alone in the house anymore. Propping himself up on his elbow, Carl stared into the darkness. Someday, Vanessa would want to go back to her place. She wasn't the type to take what wasn't hers. But he knew one thing for sure. He didn't want her to leave. Over breakfast the next morning, he said casually, "We should get married." The knife slipped from Vanessa's hands and clattered loudly on the floor. What? I said, we should get married. Jenny needs a father, and you need protection. Vanessa stared at him, eyes wide. I never imagined a proposal could sound like that. Carl put down his fork and looked at her. What was he supposed to say? That he had fallen head over heels for a woman with a baby? A woman who had been washing dishes in his restaurant? He struggled to find the right words, but before he could, Vanessa suddenly leaned across the table and kissed him. Softly, gently. Carl felt like he'd been struck by lightning. He pulled away, grabbed his phone. You guys can handle things without me today? I've got an important meeting, won't be coming in. The dishwasher? Yeah, find a new one. Vanessa's not coming back. If you enjoyed the story, please support me by clicking the thumbs up button. And to stay updated on new and exciting stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. All the best to you.